Imagine holding a spiritual guidebook, right? And it promises to unlock the absolute highest level of human enlightenment for you.
Right, the ultimate peak.
Exactly. So you open it up and you're bracing yourself for, I don't know, the usual grueling stuff, waking up at 4 in the morning, fasting for days, meditating in a freezing cave, just completely denying yourself any worldly pleasure.
Yeah, the classic ascetic grind.
Right. But the very first thing this book tells you to do is go watch Donald Duck.
Yep, Donald Duck.
And it doesn't stop there. It highly recommends flirting, maybe even having a scandalous romance, while explicitly forbidding you from, ever attending a how to be successful in business seminar.
It is honestly a phenomenal shock to the system.
It really is.
We have this deeply ingrained cultural assumption that reaching a higher spiritual state requires this intense, almost painful asceticism. We kind of equate deprivation with holiness, right?
Yeah, totally. Like it has to hurt to be spiritual.
Exactly. But this text completely dismantles that assumption. It replaces that rigid moralism with a profound focus on just, well, raw, unfiltered vitality.
Well, welcome to today's deep dive. We are exploring a super fascinating text from 2016 by an author named Suveng. It's titled 18 Details for Climbing to the Peak of Life in Life, with the second life in all caps.
Right, all caps.
And the mission today is to unpack this incredibly specific, highly unconventional blueprint for hacking your daily habits, to achieve that ultimate state of existence.
It's quite the blueprint.
But before we get into the wild specifics of, cartoon ducks and avoiding success seminars, we really need to understand the architecture of this whole philosophy because it rests on this very specific scale of human consciousness.
Yeah, so the author constructs this energy frequency scale, and it ranges from 1 to 1,000.
Okay, 1 to 1,000.
Right. Think of 1 as the lowest conceivable frequency of existence, and 1,000 is the absolute peak, the ultimate integration of life and spirit.
Wow.
And the text establishes 2 critical dividing lines on this spectrum. The first one is the 200 mark.
200. Got it.
If your energy frequency drops below 200, the author states you are fundamentally in a state of illness.
Wait, like physically sick?
Well, you might not have a physical fever, but your life force is critically compromised. Above 200, you enter a baseline state of operational health.
Okay, so 200 is the baseline, but then there's an even bigger leap at 700.
Exactly.
The text claims that if you operate below 700, you are still bound by all the limitations of the human state. But cross that 700 line, and you transcend human boundaries entirely. You basically enter the realm of saints, angels, Buddhas.
Yes, or bodhisattvas.
Right, which, for anyone listening who might be unfamiliar, refers to beings in the Buddhist tradition who have reached enlightenment, but deliberately choose to stay connected to the world to help others.
It's a huge shift in existence.
Yeah. And the ultimate goal for you, the listener, is hitting that absolute peak of 1,000.
But to understand how you actually traverse that massive gap from a sick 100 to a transcendent 1,000, we have to look at the central mechanism the author provides.
Right, the how-to part.
Exactly. It's summarized in a single guiding principle in the text. When a person encounters joyful events, their spirit is uplifted.
Which sounds so simple, right?
It does. But uplifted here doesn't just mean like a fleeting good mood. The text defines it as the aggressive sweeping away of lethargy.
Aggressive sweeping away, I like that.
Yeah, it is a literal reinvigoration of your cells and your consciousness. You have to consciously seek out positive events and aggressively avoid negative ones.
I was trying to visualize this mechanism, and I immediately thought of a video game health bar, but for your soul.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Because you don't just passively hope your health stays up in a game, right? You have
Yeah.
to actively dodge the poison, the attacks. You have to run around collecting the health packs.
Right, the joy is the health pack.
Exactly. And I want you, listening right now, to think about your own health bar today. Have you actively sought out a joyful event yet? Or are you just letting the poison hit you?
That's the perfect question, because the author's demanding an active, ruthless curation of your reality. You are either deliberately tuning your frequency upward, or you're allowing the world to drag you down into that illness zone below 200.
And the scary part is the most dangerous threats to that frequency aren't even necessarily external events.
No, not at all.
The text starts by targeting the silent killers residing right inside your own head. Which brings us to the first major theme, the toxicity of our own thoughts.
And the author pulls no punches here. They call bad thoughts literal suicide for your energy.
Literal suicide. That is intense. Let's look at the desire for revenge. We have all felt that, right? That hot, burning desire to get back at someone who wronged us.
Oh, absolutely. It's a very human feeling.
But the text states that harboring a revenge mindset plummets your frequency to a devastating 30. Remember, anything under 200 is illness. At 30, your health bar is basically blinking red.
You're practically on empty. And the mechanism behind that drop is fascinating. When you harbor vengeance, you are anchoring your entire life force to a past trauma and then projecting it into a future conflict.
Oh, wow. I never thought of it that way.
Right. You are generating a constant state of internal friction. To remedy this, the text advises handing your life over to the Tao, or God, and simply facing the light.
Just letting it go.
Yes. By relinquishing the burden of retribution, you aren't letting the other person off the hook. You are saving your own operational health. Carrying revenge just destroys the vessel that holds it.
That makes a lot of sense. But it's not just extreme thoughts like revenge, is it? The author targets the super mundane anxieties we all carry around every day.
Yeah, the everyday worries.
Worrying about tomorrow paying the mortgage, worrying if your kids are going to succeed, a medical test, all of that places your energy at around 100. Still deep in the illness zone.
It really drags you down.
But the text offers this beautiful, simple countermeasure. Chasing the sun escapes the darkness.
I love that phrase. The logic there is that tomorrow has tomorrow's sun. Projecting your consciousness into a future you cannot control requires a massive expenditure of energy for zero tangible return.
Right.
It is basically an energetic black hole.
Okay, so I have to admit, I genuinely struggled with the author's stance on the next set of emotions because the text claims that regret, self-blame, guilt, and shame all carry an energy level below 30.
Yep, below 30.
But get this, it places anger significantly higher at 150.
Which surprises a lot of people.
It shocked me that my immediate reaction was, wait, isn't a little bit of guilt a good thing? Doesn't feeling regret mean we have a conscience, like that we're learning from our mistakes so we don't repeat them? Why is feeling guilty mathematically worse than being angry?
Well, the author's rejection of guilt is actually one of the most profound psychological insights in the whole text. To understand why guilt is below 30, we have to look at what guilt actually does.
Okay, break it down for me.
The text uses a traditional proverb. It says it's like mending the fold after the sheep is lost. Regret is utterly useless because it requires you to split your consciousness.
Split how?
Well, party's in the present, right?
Yeah.
But the bulk of your energy is desperately trying to alter a timeline in the past that literally no longer exists.
Oh, man.
Anger at 150 has forward momentum. It's an active energy. But guilt at 30, that is pure stagnant paralysis.
So it's the paralysis that drops the frequency? I see that. But practically speaking, how do we live in society without guilt? I mean, if I mess up at work, I can't just ignore it.
And the text doesn't advocate for ignoring the mistake. It advocates for action over wallowing. The author proposes this radical alternative.
Yeah.
Accept immediate total responsibility.
Right.
Adopt the mindset that if there's a fault, it's mine, and then completely destroy the past version of yourself that made the error. You are instructed to reformat yourself daily.
Reformat yourself like a hard drive.
Exactly. You create a brand new you, moving vibrantly toward the light to make up for the shortcoming through actual contribution. Sitting in the dark feeling guilty is just a self-indulgent drain on your energy.
Wow. Reformat yourself daily. I just love how aggressive that is. But think about how difficult that is for you, the listener, in a modern environment.
Oh, it's incredibly tough.
Like in a corporate job, you literally have an annual performance review that is explicitly designed to dredge up your past mistakes from 9 months ago.
Right, they force you to look backward.
You are structurally forced to sit in that low frequency zone. So to survive that, you really have to master wiping your internal hard drive.
You really do.
But even if we perfectly curate our internal thoughts, we don't live in a vacuum. The outside world comes rushing in. Which brings us to the author's fascinating concept of the sensory diet.
Yeah, this is where the author shifts from what we generate internally to what we consume externally. They argue that our environment directly dictates our frequency.
Which makes sense.
Take horror media, for instance. It is treated as a literal toxin in this framework. The text warns that horror movies induce fear, which will immediately collapse your energy below 100.
So no slasher films if you want to reach 1,000.
Exactly. And to counteract this, the author prescribes highly specific visual antidotes. They say you should look at beautiful mountains, clear streams, lovely animals, and as you mentioned earlier, Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck.
Yeah, this was the moment my jaw just dropped. Amidst all this high-minded spiritual advice about the Tao and facing the light, you get a prescription for Donald Duck.
It's definitely not your typical guru advice.
Not at all. And I was wrestling with why this makes sense, and I think it goes back to our health bar. Or maybe let's use a tuning fork analogy.
I like that.
Think of your consciousness like a tuning fork. When you encounter joy, you strike that tuning fork in a way that makes it vibrate at a clear, bright, high frequency.
Right.
A classic cartoon represents the purest, uncorrupted form of simple joy. Think about it. A cartoon duck getting mad at a toaster has zero existential stakes.
Zero stakes. Just pure silliness.
There are no complex anti-heroes, no moral ambiguity, no tragic backstories. It demands absolutely nothing of your ego. It is an experience of complete, uncomplicated playfulness.
And that concept of ego death through play is exactly what the author is tapping into. A cartoon bypasses the calculating, anxious parts of your brain and delivers an instant hit of amusement.
Which fulfills that requirement of sweeping away lethargy.
Exactly. And the text applies this exact same strictness to our audio diet. You're instructed to listen to the sound of rain, the sound of reading aloud, or classical songs.
But you have to actively avoid traffic noise and shouting, right?
Yes, and very notably, you have to avoid pop music. The author claims pop music carries a deeply suppressive energy.
Which feels super counterintuitive because pop music is supposed to be upbeat. But if you really look at the lyrical and energetic foundation of most pop music, it is entirely driven by craving.
Oh, for sure.
It's all about heartbreak, jealousy, lust, betrayal, or superficial status seeking. I mean, it is basically a musical monument to the ego's desires and lacks. Listening to it just forces your tuning fork to vibrate with all that heavy, muddy human drama.
The author recognizes that every single sensory input carries an energetic signature. This is why the text pushes so hard for curating a high-frequency physical space, too.
Like what kind of space?
Well, it recommends hanging landscape paintings or the Heart Sutra. And for context, the Heart Sutra is a foundational Buddhist text that emphasizes the emptiness of all things, the idea that nothing has intrinsic independent existence.
Oh, okay, so it's not just a nice piece of art.
Exactly. Hanging it on your wall serves as a visual and acoustic reminder of non-attachment. It's constantly tuning your environment away from heavy materialism.
Wow.
Add in the practice of calligraphy, playing the zither, or keeping bamboo and orchids in your home, and you build a literal fortress of high frequency.
A fortress of high frequency. I love that. But the author isn't just looking at ancient practices like zithers and calligraphy. There is a blaring modern warning in this text regarding our digital diet.
Oh, this part is huge.
We are instructed to strictly limit our time on the internet and WeChat. And the author makes this massive, sweeping claim. 95% of internet articles have an energy level below 200.
And if we run that through the logic of the scale, the implications are staggering. If anything below 200 is a state of illness, then the author is stating that 95% of the internet is an active pathogen.
Pathogen! That is terrifying.
But if we look at the architecture of the modern web, the author is entirely correct. The internet operates on an attention economy that is explicitly designed to hijack your amygdala.
Right, it wants you stressed out.
Algorithms optimize for outrage, fear, tribalism, and bitter debate, because those emotions keep you scrolling. Outrage is one of the heaviest, most lethargy-inducing frequencies a human can experience.
So doom scrolling isn't just you wasting 20 minutes on the couch, you know? It is a systematic poisoning of your spiritual vitality. You are basically letting the algorithm strike your tuning fork with a hammer.
That's exactly what you're doing.
Okay, so we've cleaned up our thoughts, we've purged our media diet, we've decorated with bamboo, and we're watching cartoons.
We're doing great so far.
But what happens when we walk out the front door? Because this brings us to the author's blueprint for social interaction and action in the physical world. And the advice takes another massive swing here.
It does. Now, the social blueprint starts with familiar ascetic ground. Eat a vegetarian diet, live simply, reduce luxury, and practice giving.
The usual stuff, yeah.
But then the author quickly pivots to clarify that energy frequency has absolutely zero correlation with society's markers of success. Degrees, wealth, status, power, they mean nothing here.
So who are we supposed to hang out with?
You are told to surround yourself with happy, highly spiritual people and to aggressively cut out energy vampires, the cynics, the gossips, the stubbornly rigid,
And specifically, people who cannot go 3 sentences without talking about money.
Yes, because constantly talking about money anchors your entire consciousness in material anxiety.
Right. It is a mindset of pure scarcity and calculation. Instead, you are told to play games, to dance, to sing, and to respect common folks over the elite.
Which is a beautiful way to live.
It is. But here is the curveball that completely shatters the mold of a typical spiritual guide. And remember, we're just reporting what the text says here, not endorsing it.
Right, the text gets very specific here.
The text explicitly tells you to avoid politics, avoid dogmatic religion, and specifically avoid success seminars. Yet in the very same breath, it highly encourages you to engage in romance, to flirt, and to have affairs or illicit love to elevate your vibrational frequency.
Which is just, wow.
I mean, this is wild. Avoid a success seminar, but go have an affair. It completely flips the traditional script of, like, ascetic, rule-bound spirituality.
It really does. But we have to step outside of our conventional moral frameworks to understand the physics of this instruction, according to the author.
Okay, explain the physics of it.
The author is stripping away all societal judgment and evaluating actions purely by their energetic output. Think about a How to Become a Millionaire seminar. What is the emotional atmosphere in that room?
Oh, it's super tense, dense with future-oriented anxiety, fierce comparison, ego.
Exactly, and a profound sense of lack. You are there because you believe you are not enough. That drops your frequency like a stone.
And conversely, if we look at romance, flirting, and physical intimacy, when you are caught up in a new romance or sharing a deeply intimate, playful moment with someone, the rigid societal mask completely falls away.
Right, you're not thinking about your job.
You aren't calculating your 401k at all. You are entirely present. You feel a surge of raw, joyful human connection. It makes you feel intensely alive. It aggressively sweeps away lethargy.
And that's the core of it. The author prioritizes vitality over conventional morality. Dogmatic religion and corporate ladder climbing breed heavy, anxious rigidity.
Yeah.
But playfulness, whether through a game of chess, dancing, or romantic intimacy, fosters a state of raw presence. The text isn't necessarily a moral endorsement of infidelity. It is a clinical observation of what actually makes a human being feel vibrant.
Does this action make your spirit heavy and calculating, or does it make you light and present?
Exactly.
It is such a refreshing, albeit kind of shocking, lens to view your daily choices through. So let's pull all of this together. We are dodging the workplace gossips, we are skipping the leadership seminars, we're watching our cartoons, and we are refusing to feel guilty about yesterday.
We're practically glowing.
But how does this patchwork of daily habits culminate in reaching that ultimate transcendent peak of 1,000?
So in the final stages, the author shifts from these daily micro-hacks to massive spiritual integration. You are instructed to maintain a profound reverence for nature and life.
Okay, that makes sense.
And the text introduces a visualization technique where you build what they call a consciousness palace.
A consciousness palace, like a mind palace.
Sort of. You invite the absolute heaviest hitters of spiritual history, Jesus, Buddha, Lao Tzu, into this internal palace.
Wow, quite the guest list.
Right. But not to bow to them as distant, punishing deities, but to align your own tuning fork with their transcendent frequencies.
The text also calls for striving toward enlightenment and mastering the 8 non-states.
Yeah.
Which, for you listening, is this profound Buddhist concept of complete detachment from worldly winds. It means your frequency is no longer swayed by gain or loss, praise or blame, fame or disrepute, pleasure or pain. You are just unshakable.
Completely unshakable. But the author drops one final reality check on us here. They say that all these daily details, the 18 details, are just the small streams that form a river.
So they aren't the whole picture.
Right. To actually hit 1,000, you have to clear 3 monumental checkpoints. Building your soul garden, repaying all your karmic debts to humanity, and accumulating massive merit.
Okay, building a soul garden requires cultivating an inner landscape of absolute unshakable peace, right? And repaying debts means untangling every single knot of resentment, obligation, and attachment you have with other human beings. I mean, these are lifetimes of work.
They absolutely are.
Which really begs the question, how on earth are you, the listener, supposed to reconcile these massive existential lifetime tasks with, like, make sure to listen to the rain and tidy your room today? It feels like a massive disconnect between the micro and the macro.
It does feel like a leap, but the author resolves that disconnect with one brilliant philosophical synthesis, they say. Great achievements are built on attention to detail.
The micro is the pathway to the macro.
Exactly. You cannot possibly build a pristine soul garden if you are voluntarily poisoning your frequency every single morning by arguing with strangers on the internet.
Right.
You cannot untangle your karmic debts with humanity if you are stewing in a revenge fantasy that keeps your energy pinned at 30.
You just don't have the energy for it.
Precisely. You cannot master the 8 non-states if your nervous system is constantly hijacked by the fear-mongering of a horror movie or the anxiety of a success seminar.
So the daily details are the reps. You can't lift the 1,000-pound spiritual weight if you haven't built the muscle by dodging the 30-level poisons and, seeking out the simple, unpretentious joys.
The climb to the peak of life, in all caps, isn't achieved through one agonizing leap of ascetic deprivation. It is climbed by fiercely protecting your vitality in 1,000 tiny daily decisions.
So for you listening right now, I think the biggest takeaway from this incredibly bizarre, brilliant text is that your spiritual health, your vibrational frequency is entirely in your own hands.
It really is.
It isn't determined by a guru on a mountain. It is determined by the choices you will make in the next hour. Will you let the anxiety of tomorrow drag you into illness, or will you accept that tomorrow has its own sun?
Such an important question.
Will you sit in the paralysis of guilt, or will you wipe the hard drive and create a vibrant new version of yourself today?
And if there is one specific concept from the author's work to carry with you immediately, I think it goes back to that startling warning about our digital diet.
Oh yeah, the 95%.
Yes, 95% of the internet exists below the 200 energy mark. It is structurally designed to keep you spiritually sick. So think about the very last thing you engaged with on your phone before starting this deep dive.
Was it striking your tuning fork with clarity and joy, or was it a heavy, muddy frequency of outrage and lack?
Exactly. What is one specific thing in your immediate environment right now that you could change to guarantee a boost in your frequency?
Maybe it's time to close the doom scrolling app, let go of the rigid expectations of success, and go find yourself a cartoon duck.